Hey, my name is Matt Storr, and I repair saxophones for a living, and I am here this week. The place is absolutely huge. A forest of practice rooms, the famous Interlochen Bowl, the Visual Arts Center, the Creative Writing House. Really gorgeous place. And I'm told that these are like the most original cabins on campus, which is kind of what it would have looked like when this was opened as basically a band camp in 1928. But that's not what I'm here to show you. And I'm not even here to show you the repair shop, which does exist, which is pretty amazing for a high school. It's mostly dormant during the school year, although they do have a brass repair class, which is pretty amazing for high schoolers. That's so cool. I mean, even just sort of getting an idea of how this stuff works is going to be amazing for these kids. How lucky. But like I said, I'm not here to show you that either. What I'm actually here to show you is in this place. And it's a pretty well hidden thing. Getting warmer. And these cases are like somewhat empty of saxophones right now because they are in a different location. Yep. Here we are. And this is where I have been working all week. And I've got some pretty interesting stuff to show you. Okay, so apologies if this is disjointed. I've had to do this a little bit at a time. This is the last night I'm here. There's like a concert about to begin outside this door. We're in a library, but they're having a concert. So I'm going to try and get through some stuff. I thought I would have more time, but they've kept me so busy this week. Basically, this collection has sort of been in stasis, would be a good kind word for it, for a very long time. It did get kind of put into a safe place where you see it now, but not much has happened to it since early 2000s. And they finally have a little bit of funding for it, thanks to the Greenleaf family, the descendants of Carl Greenleaf, and the children of Leland Greenleaf. And basically the story is that the Greenleaf family bought Conn from Conn, and then in 1969, when the Greenleaf family was forced to sell to the publisher Macmillan, they were worried that the Conn factory museum, which you can see here, so see that instrument right there. There it is. And check this out, isn't that cool? So that would have been in the Conn factory in 1969. This is a product manual from then. Leland Greenleaf, his family had had a relationship with Interlochen, which you can read a bit about here. And also there'll be some links down below if you would like to learn more about this stuff. Donated the Conn Museum to Interlochen. And so the stuff that was at Conn came to Interlochen, and this is most of that stuff. Now, a lot of it kind of, the story when Conn got sold, a lot of that stuff just disappeared. The papers, the designs, a lot of the instruments from the model shop where they were prototyping instruments just got tossed out or taken home by somebody. But this is probably the largest collection of that stuff that came directly from the factory. And I've actually seen, like, in some boxes, they've got this paper, like these papers in boxes that I've seen. And a lot of these instruments came all at once. So the Greenleaf collection in Interlochen, it's actually a place you can visit. But I would like to show you a few horns and a few things that I've seen just to kind of give you a rundown. Now, just a little bit of what they've got here. So I'm a saxophone guy, so this will be mostly about saxophone stuff. We've got over here, this is a 1895 Conn baritone. Let's see, serial number is 227. One thing you'll notice about it, left-hand bell keys. Interesting. If we go over to Conn alto, number 197, also 1895. So we're talking about both of these are the first few months of manufacture for saxophones in the United States, let alone Conns. And check out that like sculpted E flat and C there. Isn't that interesting? And look, the F sharp looks exactly like Conn F sharp looked for a long time. And these side keys here look very, very similar to how they looked for a very, very long time. And you've got a double octave mechanism. That neck's been pulled down, but nothing that can't be fixed. The left-hand pinky table is pretty interesting, kind of sculpted. Those are metal rollers. But you know, that design is not too crazy. It doesn't really look as old as you might expect, especially considering that 1858, when this Adolph sax was made, this is a high-pitched C melody. Talk about a redheaded stepchild, right? Was made, and it just looks so fantastically different from the Conn. So there was an awful lot of progress made between 1858 and 1895, even considering that this was Conn's, you know, kind of first attempt at the saxophone. And there's a lot you can read about Conn's first attempt at the saxophone and how it came to be. I don't think that that story is like fully figured out yet. There's kind of a lot, there's a lot of different ways that story could have gone, but basically Gus Bisher, who ran Bisher Band Instrument Manufacturing Company after that, made the first saxophone in the United States for Conn, worked there for a little bit and then left. Now we also look over here, we have Conn tenor number 211. This is 1895 as well. Got some very pretty but very basic engraving, nickel plate, and again, left-hand bell keys, right? And also, check out that neck shape. I mean, that looks like Conn looked for a very, very long time. It's got metal key touches. It's actually pretty comfortable. This is high pitch, as is the alto, as is the baritone. So unfortunately, they're not really going to be played in a modern context by themselves. Perhaps if they got a soprano here, which they don't have, they could have a quartet of high pitch 1895 instruments. They've also got, here's another very, very early one. This is kind of cool. They've got the cards from the Conn Museum, although some of this stuff is incorrect. This one actually does have a serial number. It is, I think, did we figure it out? We do know what it is. Let's see, it's written on here. I think it's 168 maybe. Yeah, 168. That's also left-hand bell keys. But then look, we go down to, let's see, where is it? Here we go, 337. Also 1895, not much long after it. But look, split bell keys. Isn't that weird? So it's only like the first 300 or so saxophones made by Conn that had left-hand bell keys. Then they went to split bell keys and kept it that way, like pretty much forever. Let's see, anything else got on the shelf? We've got another very, very early Conn tenor. This one is serial number 301. So we know up to 301 is left-hand bell keys. And let's see, anything else that's on this shelf? We've got, this one's pretty cool. I don't know if you can see this engraving. This is just it's a New Wonder Series 2, so it's not an 1800s horn. This is a burnished gold New Wonder Series 2 alto with a nice castle engraving on it. Actually, this was donated later as part of a pair with this burnished gold Conn stretch soprano. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about that stuff. I lined these up just because I thought it was interesting. We've got a curved soprano, low pitch, B flat. We've got a sopranino, two-tone, silver and gold, pitched in E flat. We've got a C soprano, made by Martin. We've got a regular B flat straight soprano. It's a New Wonder Series 2. And then we've got the Conn 18M stretch soprano, which was a model that was made for just a little while. It was a product of their research and development laboratory, which Leland, that guy, actually worked at and was their lead engineer before he became the president of Conn. They worked on the F mezzo, the K-Sax, which we're going to get to, and they sort of, made a science out of instrument design. They were the only place that had a research lab like that. It's where the Strobicon came from. It's where the F mezzo came from. A lot of, and also if you're into brass instruments, I think it's the Coprian bell, where they did electrochemical, metal deposition onto a mandrel to make a fully seamless, basically super, super thick plating to make a trumpet bell. And then they made the 18M stretch soprano. So if we look, we can see that these are all lined up at the bottom. If we take a look, we can see the sopranino, the C soprano, the B flat soprano, and then whoop, just a little bit longer is the stretch soprano. And if we kind of come out a little bit, you can sort of see, especially down near the bell, see how much skinnier the stretch is? It's a narrower bore, it's longer. If you've got the mouthpiece that fits it, which I actually made a video a little while ago because I like stretch sopranos, on how you can take a modern mouthpiece and make it into a stretch soprano mouthpiece. But the original mouthpiece was quite different from the other mouthpieces of the time, and it will not play in tune with most mouthpieces. You have to either take a modern one and modify it or have an original. But it actually plays great, and it's got a really, really nice tone. So this was, and also the easiest way you can tell a stretch soprano is that bis, right? Which it also shares with the F mezzo. And I think it shares it with the K-Sax, but I don't have a production K-Sax here. All I have is the K-Sax prototype. So we take a look at this. If you know K-Saxes, there's a couple differences immediately. Now there's only 26 of those in existence, so it's likely that you don't. But the K-Sax is an instrument where I've got a video on it. I'll probably link to it below. Goes from low A to high G. This prototype only goes low B flat to high F. There is no high G or F sharp up here. It's a lot of real estate right there. And there's no bis at all, which is kind of interesting on this prototype. But we see some interesting prototype things going on. We've got a little plate soldered on there. So they're moving tone holes around in the prototype, in the model shop, they called it. It's got soldered tone holes rather than drawn. So they made a tube and they were moving things around to figure out like how the horn would work. And they've got more prototypey stuff down here on the low C. That's another big patch where they obviously move that tone hole to get better intonation. So that is the prototype for the K-Sax. And the last really interesting thing about this, I mean, it's an interesting horn in general, especially like the fit and finish is pretty cool. Like that key work looks like the, you know, F mezzo, the key shapes. It's not new under Series 2. So they were definitely working on the new key shapes on the F mezzo and the K-Sax first. But this right here, so the K-Sax bell is kind of unique. This is not what the eventual one looks like, but it's pretty close. It's like a bulbous thing that's kind of closed at the bottom, got some holes around here. What they're basically doing with the K-Sax, ever seen a sax mute, right? They're basically kind of having a built-in mute on the bell to give it like a little bit more of a mellow tone. And so they were trying to figure out like how much venting they needed to where they could get like a mellow tone without affecting intonation or having problems. And you can see this is kind of like handcrafted, right? But it's also, this is a screw bell. This screws right off. So they probably could have had multiple different types of bell that they would have taken into the research laboratory and experimented with from the model shop and sort of, you know, figured out what intonational issues they were causing or not and what sort of sound they were getting out of it. So that thing is pretty cool. That is one of a kind for sure. It wasn't even really like widely known to exist until recently. And I think, from what I can tell, because I've been talking to everyone else who's been here, I think I was the one that figured out that it was a screw bell. I mean, I just looked at that. That looks like a screw bell, right? So I unscrewed it and it came off. Then I took pictures and sent it to people that had been working here before, and everyone was really surprised. So I'll give you another close-up of that engraving, just because that's so pretty. Over here we have another, I guess you'd call it a one-of-a-kind. So this is a New Wonder Series 2 C Melody. The thing that's a little bit weird about it, though, is that the serial number is pretty early for a New Wonder Series 2. And the reason for that is this right here, where it says 817. Is that what it says? Yeah, sorry, it says 8M201 Boyer, and then 8/14/24. So August 14th, 1924. Here we go again. 8M201 OK Boyer. And an OK Boyer horn, as these are called, the general secretary of Conn was a guy named James Boyer. And when they had a saxophone that the model shop had done all of their prototyping and was going to make the first kind of production model, right, where they'd taken all the stuff they'd learned No more patches. They had everything where they wanted it. It was as good as a production model, but it was still handmade, and they were, sort of making sure that they were done with the prototyping process. They'd send it to Boyer, and when he was okay with it, he would say, "Okay, Boyer." And so there's a few of these instruments out there. Most of the ones I know about are at SaxQuest or saxophone.org, and they are the okay to go and make this model. So it's got an earlier serial number than these actually appeared in the wild, because this was a process going on in the background. These horns were not supposed to leave the shop. And as a matter of fact, we've got obsolete model, C melody saxophone. And there's a sign out card. So sometimes saxophones will show up in the wild with sign out cards on them. This one is empty. It's got a sign out card, but nothing's in there. It looks like a library card. And there'll be signatures of people inside Conn that took it out for one reason or another. And so this is the 8M, and this was supposed to stay in the factory, went into the museum. And you can actually see, this is kind of interesting because this is not an E-flat alto, right? So you kind of wonder what was going on where the Conn Museum of Musical Instruments didn't know with their own horn, right? So I found a lot of things that I was doing this week was actually kind of correcting inventory, because this got donated in '69 and not a ton happened to it. So I went through all the saxophones and found out all the errors and all the stuff that was wrong, and tried to sort of correct everything and get everything on stable footing so that they can start curating the collection and figuring out what they want to do with it. And I think getting a bunch of these instruments repaired and actually in playable condition is the next step. Like this horn was not listed as a stretch, right? So they would, if they got it fixed up, they might not know that it's not going to play out of tune with a normal mouthpiece. This was not listed as high pitch. This was listed as an alto. This was listed, I think, as a C melody. One of them was anyways. So let's move on to this weird looking thing. Anyone have any guesses what this is? If anyone knows what this might be, they might be flipping out a little bit. I'll give you a big hint. So this is Alan Lumis's prototype. If we look in here, we can see the serial number, 5960, what is that? 607. This is a Conn body. So I'm going to put this down carefully because this is also a one-of-a-kind instrument. This is a Conn body that later Conn designer Alan Lumis got some patents on it here. And you can actually see like a little bit. Let's see if we can get to it. This right here, that's the Conn engraving that he buffed or sanded off. So he used a Conn body and he modified it. Look, we've got those patches again. In order to prototype his key system idea. And his key system idea, which has come up a few times in the history of making wind instruments, is that he didn't think that there should be any closed tone holes that really, really, really didn't need to be closed. So for instance, we see here the G and the G sharp. Oh, sorry, here's the G. Sorry, G and the G sharp. When you close G, it closes the G sharp. And then when you press the G sharp, it opens the G sharp back up, right? So the G sharp is not sprung shut. So he wanted to get rid of undervented notes, as we call them today. And he had a pretty complex mechanism for doing so. You can see here where he sealed the low C sharp, put it on the back, and when we close C, C and C sharp close. And I can't reach with one hand. But if we then added the C sharp after this, C sharp would open back up. He ended up making saxophones called the Lumis double resonance, where he put this into practice in a very, very beautiful and well-engineered way. It's just they're kind of impractical. He also was a fan of having more octave pips than 2, and so some of his horns, which you can see at saxophone.org, have 3 or 4 pips, and a really, really complex mechanism to make that happen. But here we see, this is definitely, he was a really, really talented guy, but this is kind of some homemade type stuff where he was, figuring this out. Look, there's a tone hole that's been patched. And let's see, let's go around to the back. Oh, and this is also, I don't think this neck, this neck might not be original because of the way that the tuner is, but I'm not totally certain. They have another horn here. That's 57,000. Is this it? Nope, 97,000. I forget where it went. But there's another horn that's very close to this one. But, oh, it's in a case, that's right. Turn this around. And we can get another look at the mechanism here, back here, which is really some amazing stuff. And, he's got this huge key guard here. And this is to protect some of the mechanism that he had going around the back of the horn. And it's just so pretty. What a cool design that is. Lumis, I believe, was an engineer at Packard, I think, and also at a manufacturer of aircraft engines. He was extremely talented, but I don't think that he was like a musician first. And the card for the Lumis, let's see, where is it? It's a pretty good burn. Saxophone needed little to improve it. It's harsh because that's their own guy. Lumis worked with Greenleaf in the research lab. One of the things Alan Lumis also made was the Strobocon tuner. I think, could be wrong on this. I'm like going a lot on memory because I'm just trying to run through this before I get out of here. Anyhow, the Strobocon also came out of the research laboratory. So, and there's also a ton of other stuff. There's an original screw bell trombone. There's some really amazing engraving from probably Jake Gardner, given when this came from, but it's hard to know for sure. They actually have a few instruments that are on loan to the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix, like Patrick Gilmore's cornet, which is absolutely fully engraved. And Jake Gardner, the engraver of Conn, made himself a trombone. He was said to be the only person that could make an instrument, engrave it, and then play it at the Conn factory. He was an unparalleled craftsman. And there's just an awful lot of really, really amazing engraving horns here. And I don't know much about brass. I was actually someone coming on Tuesday, Mark Metzler, to take a look at all this stuff and start to give them an idea about what they've got brass-wise, which is a ton. And I'm also looking for someone to help them with their clarinets. They've got someone for their flutes. There's a Louis Lott here that's pretty amazing. And so let's take another quick look around here. They've also got a straight alto that Don Cinta played on when he was here. Apparently he was teaching here a lot and he played on that horn. A Conn bass that's a relatively regular bass. And then we've got, this is, a bass drum from C.G. Conn's Trumpet Notes band. So the different factories would have bands that would, sort of compete with each other to be the best band, playing the best instruments in like parades. They also had baseball teams. Apparently you could get a job at Conn a little easier if you were a good baseball player. And we've got this mouthpiece display, which is just kind of amazing, that for brass mouthpieces goes through like the history of mouthpieces of Conn. Now, a few of these are missing because this used to be on a Conn course where students could get to it and it wasn't very well secured. So a few of these are missing, unfortunately, but I think they're hoping to get this fixed up and get it put back together. Let's see. There's one more thing I wanted to show you. What was I thinking? Oh, yeah. Okay, so we looked at the original manual here. By the way, a copy of these, one of these, I think it's very similar, is scanned and available on saxophone.org. And it's pretty fascinating because they do show like part of the design or the research laboratory. It's really, really fascinating book. Even though it's 1969, they've got a lot of stuff of their history, although apparently sort of like those tags on the instruments we saw, not everything in their own manual about their own history is 100% accurate. Oh, and there's Patrick Gilmore, whose cornet the Greenleaf collection contains. So here's something I thought was kind of fun. You can pause it and read it if you'd like, but it's a letter from 1894. It's got Conn's signature on it. And basically he's telling somebody that they don't get free shipping because they already got a discount. I kind of love it. It's like, I enclose herewith a rebuke, sir. But it's really funny to see that, things change, but some things stay the same. So there is a really quick run through of some of the instruments in the Greenleaf collection. And this is a place you can visit. This is a place where you can see things. That's like an absolutely mint Fisher 400 alto. That is an enormous bell, gold-plated sousaphone. I mean, that thing is huge to be gold-plated. It's just crazy. And, you know, like, there's like old documents. Oh, look, it's probably like, you know, some of the stuff from the, you know, catalog we saw. But it's a really incredible place. I got to spend all week here. I was working really hard and hopefully, you know, helped out with the collection. Got to see a lot of really, really amazing instruments that I could see and hold and touch. And the plan is to make more and more of these playable for students and visitors. So take a look at the description below. See if you can come take a visit, call them, tell them how awesome this is and how they should pay a little more attention to it. And that would be super cool. But I hope you found this helpful, useful, and informative. I'm sorry for the really quick run through. There may be errors in it. I tried to be accurate, but I was learning a lot being here this week. And, you know, some things were new to everybody. But that's just kind of the amazing thing about this is there's actually things to uncover and things to learn. So hopefully you found this helpful, useful, and informative. My name is Matt Storr. I repair saxophones for a living, and every once in a while, I end up accidentally doing a little bit of like blue-collar saxophone repairman consulting. Thanks for watching. What?